start.
Since the secretary has not joined yet, I'll just go ahead. It's not about the ideas, it's all about those ideas happening. I welcome you all to the game-changing Flutter mobile application workshop. For most of you who don't know about our DI club, we are one of the computer science department clubs in SRM Madaparani. Design and Innovation Club is a team of like-minded people who are trying to bring a platform to showcase design ideas, projects, innovation teams through workshops, webinars, and contests. We want people to learn something out of the syllabus and add it to their skill set. And most importantly, have fun in the process when they learn. The same way, today we take immense pleasure on having you all on board with us for our Flutter workshop. We have with us our speaker for the day, Ayush Shekhar, who is going to give you all a hands-on experience with Flutter. To welcome and introduce him, I request the DI Club's technical lead and the event coordinator of Srinivas to render the speaker profile.
Thank you, Divya. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
It is.
Good morning, all. So today's event and today's speaker is Mr. Ayush Shekhar. He's the founding engineer at FrontRow and a Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart. Professionalism is the character you display while being a professional. And that's the character you'll be able to witness today with our speaker for the day, Mr. Ayush Shekhar. He's a BTech computer science and engineering graduate and a very proud alumni of SRM Madaparani who is full of passion. He did his schooling in Delhi Public School and coding captured his heart and creating something new and unique became his interest. Over the years, he has accumulated much experience and exposure in the field of Flutter and development and has notable accomplishments on the same. We are extremely elated to have you today with us, sir. The meet is yours and we welcome you, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please stop calling me sir. From this point onwards, please don't call me sir. I'm feeling a lot older than I actually am. I graduated last year, guys. Okay. So please don't call me sir. Moving forward, it is just Ayush. And I just like a pro tip, when you move into the industry, the first thing that people will tell you is that please don't address them as sir or ma'am. They will tell you that please address them by their first name, and that should be more than enough. So no sir moving forward today. Okay, and thank you so much for that warm welcome. I have never had such a formal welcome. So that was a first, definitely. And yeah, as as you were just being informed that I'm a alumni of SRM VDP itself. So it's really a proud moment for me that I've been given this opportunity to address and speak to you guys. And more than, I think I'm more excited about interacting with you people rather than the workshop itself. So I would like to take this opportunity and spend the next few hours that we are going to be together to get to know you better, to help you gain more exposure into the industry, how it works, and tell you what you can do right from this point onwards to make yourself a better and a good fit for the industry. Because right now we see there's a lot of competition out there, and in order to stand out in that competition, in order to get somewhere and make something for yourself, there are certain key factors that are in play that you need to be aware of and that you need to grasp early on, so that you can make a dent in the industry, which is flooded with people from a lot of good backgrounds, good colleges, a lot of good exposure, etc., etc. Right? So this is not just a mobile app development workshop, but also an opportunity for you to learn about the industry and how can you do better at it. Right? So I will just share my screen, and I think that will be shared throughout.
Just few points, can I?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yeah, students actually, and the participants from outside, I think from other colleges. I heard that there were some international participants also. It's a great pleasure to have Ayush. Actually, is one of our best alumni, actually, who's very practical during these 4 years. Okay, so whenever I call him for anything or ask him anything, he'll be the first person to come out and stand in the stage and to explain on anything or for any particular matter, whatever it be. So he was open-endedly, he accepted, I'm very much grateful for that, and I'm really happy to see one of my student whom I was a class in charge to be presenting here. So it's nice. This one day utilize him. He's having more knowledge and more practical thing on how to work in an industry and all. So definitely any kind of question related to Flutter or anything, I mean, how to approach a placement or something like any kind of thing, you can feel free. Okay, I think you'll have a good time with Ayush. So I'm really happy to see you, Ayush. Like it's like satisfaction that us as a teacher when we get a person coming as a resource person. So it's really nice to see that. So I'll hand over it to Ayush without more delay. Okay, you can start.
Yeah. Cool. Before we move on with the workshop, I would definitely like to know all the participants and the kind of audience that I'm addressing. So, first question, is anyone here who is not from SRM Vadapalani or any of the SRM campuses? Anyone? You can just unmute yourself and tell. Anyone here who's not from SRM Vadapalani or not from any of the SRM campuses?
Yeah, there were some external
No one.
participants, right? No one.
If you don't
But I
want to,
think they haven't
unmute,
joined.
at least please put it in the chat so that.
matlab just put it in. You can just put it in the chat however you seem comfortable. Cool. I'm guessing no external participants have joined right now. Not a problem. Anyways, can you please just put the year of your study right now in the chat? Like if you're in the second year, just put 2 in the chat. If you're in the third year, just put 3. If you're in the final year, just put 4. If you're in the first year, just put 1. 3, 4, 3.
Yes, I have not
Three,
yet.
three, three.
Second years I have actually in the exam. So I mean,
Oh, okay.
so they are yet to join. The second years, the third semester is yet to start for them. So mostly it will be from third year, and there is one person.
Shavi is an outsider. Which college are you from, Shavi? Or are you a student?
No, I'm not a student. I'm actually working.
Oh,
I'm a content writer.
Oh, where are you working right now?
In Zoho.
Oh, amazing. Nice to have you here, Shavi.
Thank you so much for the workshop. Just that I want to learn a lot about mobile development, so I just came to join here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so I think majority of the people who have joined here are either is Shavi and either third or fourth year students. So this is the perfect demographic. I mean, this is the perfect demographic because you are just now stepping into the industry, and I mean, we would be having fun. So just to maintain some kind of a structure to the workshop, we would not be having real-time questions because that just breaks the flow of content, and you can get distracted very easily. So a few things that I would like for you to keep in mind is that please, if you do not already have, please get a notebook or a piece of paper or something and a pen and keep it alongside. I don't want you to take notes. You can if you want to, but just I just want you to have one piece of paper and one pen with you so that you can keep noting down your questions. And this is like, I think, the 6.5 hour workshop. So throughout this duration, whatever content I give you, and if you have any questions, right, just keep noting them down one by one. And at the end of every hour, so right now it's 11:13, right? So as soon as we hit 12:10, we will have a 15-minute Q&A round, right? So that after every hour, if we have a Q&A round, then we can clear up all your questions also on the go, and we will not be distracting the flow of the workshop as well. Does that make sense? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Someone please keep conversing with me, otherwise I'll feel like I'm speaking into darkness.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So yeah, cool. So just do this, okay? And I'm assuming that you all have installed Flutter and are ready to dive directly into the code and dive directly into application building. If you haven't already, I think for the next 30 to 45 minutes, I am going to be going through some concepts about product development and mobile apps in general. So I mean, if you haven't already installed Flutter, this is your moment. If you have a good internet connection, please go to flutter.dev and go through the docs and install Flutter. Although I hope that you already have installed it. Okay, cool. So I will now share my screen finally. Can I share my entire screen? Yeah, I think I can. Cool, perfect. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah, please. So basically, these are the topics that I had planned for this workshop, right? But there needs to be certain expectation setting. I know that this is a huge list. We might not be able to cover all of this. I'm just telling you beforehand, we might not be able to cover all of this. And just to, clear it up at the start, after this workshop, you will not suddenly become an app developer. This is just the first step. This is just like, an onboarding process to get you aboard the ship of mobile app development so that you can put in the effort and take it from there. So I am just here to give you that direction and give you that push that you needed to start with mobile app development. And then you have to create uncountable projects. You have to work on a lot of use cases and all of those things. All of that effort has to be put into yourself in order to get the most out of you as a developer, right? So I think before starting out with Flutter, before starting out with writing any code or anything, it is quintessential for us to know. It is very important for us to know as to what is product development and why is it so essential. Like, okay, so right now, I think you would have heard that people nowadays, whenever they step out of the college, generally it has now become a general tendency for people that they do not want to get hired by huge multinational companies. Right now, I don't think people aspire to be hired by TCS or Infosys. I am not saying that they are bad companies. They are huge companies. They have a huge footprint across the globe. But people nowadays, young students, young talent doesn't aspire to work for TCS or Infosys or Wipro, right? What they do aspire to be is they aspire to work maybe for Swiggy. They aspire maybe to work for Zomato. They aspire maybe to work for, some other promising startup like Cred. Have you heard of Cred? It is Kunal Shah's latest startup that, lets you pay credit card bills and has a lot more to it right now. But so these are the new upcoming startups. These are the unicorn companies. Do you guys have, sorry, not guys, do you folks have a clue as to how many startups, Indian startups, have gained the unicorn status in this year itself? Any guesses? You can just leave it in the chat. How do I access the chat? Come on, guys. Come on, folks. I need some answers. How many Indian startups have gained the unicorn status this year itself? Do you have any
59.
rough number?
I had
How many?
59 is what I
No,
got to know.
59. That is like a thoda stretch. Not 59. Can you name, like, this is an open question to everyone. If you want to unmute and just say, can you name a few startups who have just attained the unicorn status this year? Folks, I would like this workshop to be interactive. Please speak up. I'm just like your friend. I'm not going to be judging you if you say something wrong. I've been there. I have been as anxious as you are. I've been as nervous as you are. I've been as excited as you are. I've been as chilled out and not giving, not bothering about what someone is saying in a workshop as you are. So I've been there, but trust me, if we have this conversation, then it will be a good value addition for you.
Charge
Can you
B.
name any? Sorry,
Charge B.
might be. Any other names? Have you heard of this
Baiju.
company called Grow? No, Byju's has been a unicorn for a while now.
Grow is a stock market. Like stock broking
Yeah,
app.
yeah, 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 yeah. Grow also reached the unicorn status this year. Have you heard of Meesho? Meesho is an e-commerce company. They also reached the unicorn status this year. Have you heard of Cred?
Yeah.
Folks, speak up. Huh. They also reached the unicorn status this year. And these are just few of the, yeah, ShareChat also reached the unicorn status this year. And just to clarify, unicorn status is that your company is now valued at $1 billion or above. So as an Indian startup being valued at $1 billion plus is a huge deal. And this year itself, in 2021 itself, there have been 21 companies, 21 companies who have achieved that unicorn status this year. And that is amazing. And we have also had the first IPO of a startup. I think you would definitely have heard of Zomato IPO, right? It was, I mean, it was one of the, I think it was the most retail invested IPO in the history of India. So basically, that IPO, the Zomato IPO, had the most number of retail applicants, applying to be a part of that IPO. So like people like you and me, not institutional investors, but retail investors who, like individual people trying to get a piece of the pie. So that was amazing. And it created so much buzz that, only 1/3 of the people who applied could actually get it. I think the fraction is even lower than that. So right now the startup industry is really booming, and that is because people are putting in a lot of effort into product development. People are putting a lot of effort into defining as to what their product is, how their product is useful for the people, and how their product can add value. So for example, if you consider these simple products that we generally use on a day-to-day basis, like I have an example of 4 products that I generally use on a day-to-day basis. One is Swiggy. I use Swiggy on a day-to-day basis. I use Zomato on a day-to-day basis. I use Cred, not on a day-to-day basis, but on a month-to-month basis when I have to pay off my credit card bills. And I use Twitter on an hour-to-hour basis because I'm really active on Twitter. So all of these products, what is it that makes these products so great? Obviously, their UI, their UX, the tech stack that is behind them. But tech is just an enabler. When you get into development or when you get into the technical industry, you will find that tech is just an enabler. I mean, it's not just an enabler, it is the enabler. Nothing can work without the tech. So for example, Swiggy is also a tech company, Zomato is also a tech company, Policy Bazaar is also a tech company, and all of these companies who offer different services, who seem to be offering uh, you know physical services that you can actually touch and feel, are also tech companies, because tech is the ultimate enabler. Whatever you want to do, that is enabled via tech. Tech creates the product, right? And that is where you are going to be coming in. And not necessarily, you might not be a developer, you might be a content writer like Shavi, you might be a product manager, you might be a marketeer, you might get into finance, you might get into sales. I mean, an engineer can do anything, right? So you, in every step of the process, is so essential, because I've had people, I have independently consulted for new startups and companies who had this great idea, but their idea was very scoped and limited to the tech of it, right? So they thought that if we hire a few good tech people, we if we hire a good a few good developers, and if we pay them exorbitantly, we keep them happy, then we will be successful as a company, will be successful. But it doesn't work that way. Having worked in an early stage startup, I have set up FrontRow right from its inception, right from its beginning, when we had just 500 users, to having almost 1 million users right now. I have seen that journey of FrontRow, and I was right there at the driver's seat. And I can tell you this for sure, that just being a developer or just being able to code doesn't make you a good product developer, or just doesn't ensure that your company or your product is going to succeed. There is a lot more to product development than coding, right? You need to understand how people perceive your product, how people use your product, and how people would love to use your product. So for example, if today I make a feature, let's say I make a login screen, and for some reason, okay, how many of you have an SBI account? Do you have an SBI account? You can just unmute and say yes. Please say something.
I don't have one.
Does anyone have an SBI account?
Yeah, I have.
So people who have an SBI account will know that if you go to the net banking website of SBI, that is onlinesbi.com, then you have to click once on login, then again proceed to login, and then you have to enter your username and password. and then you are able to log in, right? So something as simple as user authentication, something as simple as logging inside to the internet banking portal takes 3 clicks. Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
continue.
something as simple as, logging in to the internet banking portal takes 3 clicks. And that is a bad user experience, because I really, if I'm coming there and if I'm clicking on the login button, I really want to log in. I'm not there for fun, right? So it is just wasting my time, and it is a very bad user experience. So that is where your product development experience comes in. That is where your UX experience comes in, wherein you study the behavior of your users while they use their app, and then you iterate and reiterate to make it as easy for them as possible. Like, if something can be done in 1 click, then you don't want the user to do it in 3 clicks, because on every step of the way you will see drop-offs. And what I mean by drop-offs is, like, for example, if 100 people come to the first page of SBI, then not 100 people go to the next page, would click on the button on the next page. If you go to the analytics, then on the next page you will see that there are only 95 people clicking. 5 people would have dropped off. They would feel like, you, what am I doing here? Why am I clicking on 2 or 3 buttons? They just simply drop off. And at the pace at which companies are developed right now, do you remember last year when TikTok was banned? At that point of time, when TikTok was banned, within a week, I mean, not even a week, within days of TikTok being banned, Indian TikTok apps had taken over the internet, literally had taken over the internet. If you went to the top app section of Play Store, you would see all these apps. Like, there were these apps. There was this Chingari app, there was Share Chat, there were so many apps who had just been waiting for that opportunity, that TikTok will be banned and I will grasp that opportunity. In fact, Instagram Reels had not been rolled out to the world yet, but they rolled it out in India because they knew that they could capture the market, right? So the pace at which the competition starts to creep in at any moment of time today in today's startup ecosystem is so, I mean, it's so intense, and the competition is so cutthroat that you have to, as soon as you capture a user's eyeballs, you have to retain them. You have to retain them. If you don't retain them, then they will just go away, and you can't do anything about it. That will just be, another lost lead, and you will not be able to get anything out of them. You will not be able to sell them a course. You will not be able to get them to order food. You will not be able to, get them to hire a cab or anything. Nothing. You can't let them do anything if your UI and UX experience is bad for the app or the website or any product that you are building, right? So being a product developer, being someone who is actually involved in the active development process of a product or a company, you need to think beyond code and beyond tech, right? You need to think as a user, as to, what can happen, what are the possibilities that can be there, entailing around and entailing and encircling around your application or the product that you are building. And that is very, very essential, because apart from that, even if you have the best tech stack in the world, if you have the best and the most modern tech stack in the world, it is not going to be making a difference. People don't come there to see your API response times. I mean, this was a, insider joke at FrontRow. People don't come here to see API response times. Our API response times are insane. They're literally insane. You make an API call to our backend, and sometimes it gives you response in microseconds, not even milliseconds. So when something like that happens, it feels like the app you are running, it's local. It's not fetching any data from the backend. It's just fetching everything from everything locally. But the point is not that. I mean, that is also very important. Obviously, your API response time should be very low, but you have to think beyond it. You would have written the most beautiful code that has ever been written, but if your product is unusable and if people are confused while using your product, then there is no point. Your company will eventually fail, right? So these are just certain points that I wanted to tell you about product development, and why it is very essential to think beyond tech. Why is it essential to think beyond just the code that you write. And this will be a good skill set when you step into the industry right now. Because if, let's say tomorrow, we are being optimistic, let's say tomorrow you have become an amazingly skilled Flutter developer, you are a good app developer, you know all the use cases. If someone gives you a problem, you are able to solve it, right? Then you will step into the industry and you will find that there are like 1000 more people who can do exactly the same thing, who can do the exact same thing. Those people are like, yeah, you can write code, I can also write code. You can write good code, I can also write good code. You know all the code architectures, I also know all the code architectures. You can write scalable and maintainable code, I can also write scalable and maintainable code. And there is 1000 of me, right? And there is one of you. And then there will be a competition between all these 1000 people who are highly skilled in mobile app development. At that point of time, when an employer has to make a decision as to who has to be given this job, or a company has to make this decision, or if your resume has to stand out, what is going to be that differentiating factor? What is going to be that factor that is going to get you inside that door? That is going to be your vision and your approach towards a product or a company that is beyond code. When they speak to you, they should feel, when an employer speak to you, like for example, right now, I take interviews for FrontRow, and I've been taking app developer interviews for about a year now. I took my first interview last year in, I think, September. So it's almost been a year, and I've taken like 40-50 interviews till now. And the bar of getting hired at FrontRow is so high that I have taken, the interviews of people who have had like 4 years of experience, sometimes 6 years of experience, and I've had to reject them. Not because of their technical ability, but because I couldn't see myself working with them as a team player, right? They were not, very keen on working with a team, on being productive with a team. Their vision, their approach was not beyond code. They did not have a very holistic approach to the product as well, as such, right? So this is something that really matters. As someone working in a startup or as an employer, when you are on the other side of the table, you judge a person. I mean, you are very observant, and you make your decision on hiring a person depending on what their approach is and how they are trying to tackle the problem at hand, rather than just talking about code and their technical aptitude. So yeah, I mean, this is really essential. This is very important. And please try to inculcate in yourself that thinking and that approach as to how you can get better at, evaluating a product, and how, and always try to imagine whenever you're using a product, try to imagine how you could have made it better. If you're using a screen, if you're going through an interaction, like for example, if you're adding a food item in your cart in Swiggy, right? So when you're going through that interaction, try to find out if something is there that could have made it better, right? And then when you're interviewing for Swiggy, and then when you are writing your email to get an opportunity to work with Swiggy, mention that, right? Mention that observation that you had, mention that suggestion that you had, and they will appreciate it, right? That is where your email stands out from the thousands of emails that they get every single day, right? So yeah, that was about product development and why is it so essential. Now we will be talking about Flutter, definitely. So just a quick show of hands. Before this workshop, I mean, before we asked you to install and set up Flutter, how many of you knew what Flutter is and how? I mean, you feel free to just unmute yourself and tell me, or if you are shy, just put it in the chat. But please don't be shy. Please don't be shy. Please just unmute and tell me.
It's a UI designing toolkit.
It's a UI designing toolkit. Okay. Any other responses? Folks, please speak up. As it is, it's a Saturday. I don't think we are going to get OD for this workshop. So you're definitely not here just to pass time. If you're here on a Saturday morning, then you definitely would like to learn something, and I would definitely like to know you better. So please.
It is a cross development platform. This is great app for Android, iOS, and
Yeah, perfect. That is true. Anyone else?
Sir, we can develop cross-platform applications.
Yes, we can. How did you folks come to know about Flutter? From where did you hear about Flutter?
It was kind of the buzzword like a couple years back, last year, previous year back. So, and then people started working on it, and then it just rose to the popularity.
Yep,
no,
true.
yeah,
That
it
is
was
definitely
created by
true.
Google. So
I'm
it got
sorry, I didn't
the,
catch that.
it was created by Google and supported by Google. So all got
Yep, true. Any other folks who would like to say something? Please speak up, please. And if I'm doing something that is not making you comfortable, please feel free to tell me that as well. I mean, I would definitely want that all of you, at least towards the end of this workshop, have asked me at least one question or have interacted with me at least once. Cool,
I'm sure that
perfect. I
everyone
think
will be
we've
doing
had.
that.
Sorry.
I'm sure that everyone will be doing that.
Yeah,
When we
I am very hopeful. And if people don't do it, then I would be very sad because you have to do it. I mean, it's not like, as Induvati ma'am was saying, that whenever she came up with this opportunity that, hey, this is this opportunity, are you up for it? It is not that I was not scared. Obviously, I was scared. Who is not scared? But I grasped at every opportunity that I got to jump up at the stage. I mean, sometimes it was such that people had to stop me. Okay, you have had enough opportunities. Please stay back. We would like to, give this opportunity to someone else. That was the case with me. It was not that I was not scared. I was really scared. I was also very nervous just before going on stage, just before talking to new people, just before addressing people. But I always found that as an opportune moment. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, take this opportunity and make the most of it, because that is how you get over it. That is how you get get to know more people, build more connections. And if you just keep yourself restricted into your silos, then that won't be beneficial for you or anyone else. So I would definitely love for you to speak up and interact with me and the audience, all of you. Cool. So let's get started with Flutter. Pardon for the Developer Students Club slide template. I have this. I always have this ready, so I didn't put in a lot of effort into slides because I'm more of a practical person. So I would rather go through the slides quickly and then dive right into the code, show you the code as to how. Okay, I think I have not shared it. Just a second. Oh, फिर से ये share होगा. Yep, I think the slide should be visible to you, right?
Yeah.
So pardon me for the DSC template. I actually always have this ready because I speak for a lot of DSCs. But the idea is that I didn't want to spend a lot of time on slides. I just want to go through them quickly so that we can dive right into the code, because I think that is all what you have been waiting for, right? You have been waiting for to see how Flutter works and how all of this magical ability is put into place and how you can write code. So cool. So what's up, Flutter? And we are going to learn about what Flutter is, how it was built, where it came from, where it is going, and all of that, right? So what is Flutter? I mean, it is definitely not whale sounds, right? It is, as people mention, one, it is definitely a UI development framework. That is definitely true. It is a framework, but it is also an SDK, right? It is also participants can now see your application. I don't know what that is. Anyways, so it is also an SDK. What an SDK is? That an SDK is a software development kit, right? So Flutter in itself is not just a framework. It also has an entire tooling built around it to make you to help you make your software end to end, right from writing code to compiling it into an executable file to running it. It has all that tooling built around it, so you can use Flutter to build a mobile application for iOS and Android. You can make applications for the web, that is, you can make websites or web applications as we call it nowadays. Then you can make applications for desktop platforms. You can make apps for Windows, Linux, and macOS, all the three. You can also make apps for embedded devices. People have run Flutter applications on Raspberry Pi. People have run Flutter applications on their Tesla machines. People have created Flutter applications and run them on their Toyota in-car entertainment systems. In fact, Toyota recently started hiring Flutter developers. They have their offices in Dallas in Texas, and they were hiring across levels and across verticals Flutter developers. So it is not that if you learn Flutter your opportunities are restricted. I mean, definitely the opportunities in Flutter right now, to be realistic, are not as many as in native Android development or native iOS development or native web development. But Flutter is for the future. I mean, when I had started learning Flutter, this was also a concern that I might not get a job in Flutter, but I did, right? And now I am creating jobs for other people. I'm hiring other good Flutter developers to join us at our team at FrontRow, right? So it is not that you won't get a job at Flutter, you will get a job at Flutter. And there is a huge scope. If not in India, maybe in the US. If not in the US, maybe in Europe. There is a lot of demand for Flutter developers, given the benefits of Flutter that we're now going to see in the upcoming slides, right? So yeah, and in fact, just to name a few companies, Toyota is using Flutter, BMW is using Flutter, eBay is using Flutter, eBay is using Flutter. Then who else is using Flutter? Kotak Mahindra Bank for one of their apps is using Flutter. WeChat, the one of the most popular apps on Play Store and the number one app of China, uses Flutter for like I think like 70 to 80 of their mini apps. So WeChat is like a super app, and it has like hundreds of mini apps inside of that super app, and for 70 to 80 of those it uses Flutter. And there are a lot of companies. Google uses Flutter for a lot of their applications, including Google Pay. So if you have the Google Pay app right now on your phone, that is built in Flutter. So yeah, so Flutter is currently being used by a lot of these companies, and all of these companies are hiring for Flutter developers. Flutter in itself is a framework and an SDK, but the language that you use for writing code in Flutter, that's called Dart. Flutter is not a language. Dart is the language that you use for writing code for Flutter, right? And Dart is heavily inspired from JavaScript and Java. So if you have written Java, not JavaScript, let's say just keep aside JavaScript. If you have written code in Java, then you can write code in Dart very easily, quite easily. There's no problem at all. You can write code in Dart, it will come intuitively to you. And the best part about Flutter and Dart is their documentation. I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know how they have come up with such an amazing documentation, but they have for some reason. And it's just amazing. The website and everything. I mean, generally for languages, if you go to their websites and if you go through their documentation, it's so boring that you don't want to go through it. I mean, it's generally so boring that I would definitely not want to continue to read it or not want to continue to go through it. I would rather watch a YouTube video. I would rather, read a Medium article or something. But it's not the case over here. It's not the case with Flutter and Dart. The team has spent, the developer relations team at Google for Flutter has spent so much of time and resources into developing this documentation for developers, and into making this better and better over the past 2 to 3 years, that now it has come to a point wherein you can just open flutter.dev, go to the docs, you can just open dart.dev, go to the docs, and you can just, I mean, effortlessly go through the docs. You won't feel bored, or you won't feel that this is just too much text and nothing else to read. It's not like that. It's really intuitive. And the official Flutter team also has a YouTube series where they talk about a lot of widgets. They have this boring show wherein you can see Google developers who are a part of the Flutter team itself. They are, just banging their heads with Flutter and trying to make something out of it, trying to make applications. And just to show you how real development is, real development is always not flowers and roses. In fact, it is never flowers and roses. When you're writing real code, when you're writing, code for an application that is, let's say, okay, I can give you a rough estimate right now. The FrontRow app code base is, I think, around 200,000 lines of code. Yes, it is around 200,000 lines of code. I know that when we were in college, the maximum we used to go was maybe 150 to 200 lines of code for a single program, right? But when you are managing code bases that are like 150, 200,000 lines of code, maybe Google Pay is 1.5 million lines of code. So if you are handling applications like that, like those, so you need you need to have a connection with the language and the SDK that you're building it with, right? You need to be comfortable exploring how that SDK works and how you can get the most of it. You have to be comfortable with the language and the framework that you're building it with, right? I today, if I have, I'm audible, right?
Ayush, you're kind of buffering.
Yeah, in between you were.
Okay, right now am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Properly?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So I was saying that, right now, let's say I'm given a feature or I'm given, a bug to figure out, right? So there can be multiple solutions to that problem. But as a developer, you should have a developer conscience, and you should go with the solution that is the most suitable and the best fit in that problem, because will always be a solution that will be a hacky or an easy fix, and you would think that you can get away with it, right? But you will not be able to get away with it. You do that today, you do that hacky solution today, you do that easy fix today, and 6 months later, when something else breaks around that, it will come to haunt you. And at that moment of time, you will cry and beat your head as to why you didn't go for the correct solution at the first go. So it is very important to, for the language and the framework to be intuitive enough that you have established a connect, that you can establish a connect with them, so that you can actually write code that you are, consciously, that you consciously feel good about. And I mean, this might sound very, philosophical, this might sound very unreal, but when you start writing code every single day for 12 to 14 hours every single day, then you will know what I am trying to say. Anyways, so these are just some of the statistics. These are some old statistics. I think these are from 2019 or early 2020, when the Flutter team had actually done a survey. And in that survey, they had found that in just a quarter, right? In just one quarter, I think the last quarter of 2019, 2 million plus developers were using Flutter. 2 million plus, and this number would have grown by 3 or 4 folds right now. But anyways, 2 million people were using Flutter in the last quarter of 2019, and this is just an insane number for for a technology that the stable version for which was launched in 2018 December. So in 2018 December, there was a Flutter live event in London wherein they had launched the stable version of Flutter. And in 2019 December, like in the last quarter of 2019, 2 million plus people already using Flutter. So you can see the kind of hype that has been built around Flutter and the kind of developer adoption that it has taken, right? And I'm really, really, really proud to say that we are a part of the Flutter, the Indian Flutter community. And India has the most number of Flutter developers in the world. India has the most number of Flutter developers in the world. So that's insanely amazing. Then Flutter, I think it has 120,000 plus stars on GitHub right now. In fact, I can show you the real number as well. Should I just share my entire screen? I don't want to be resharing again and again. Cool. I think I will just share my entire screen. You're able to see my screen right now, right?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
I will just quit these messaging apps. I don't want them to interfere with the workshop. This is not a messaging app, but fine. Cool. So yeah, if I open github.com/. Yep, it has around 128K stars right now. So 128,000. And in fact, Flutter, I think, was the fastest to enter the top, top 10 most starred repositories on GitHub. And right now, I think it is just above VS Code and Linux. It has crossed VS Code and Linux, if I'm not wrong. And there, I think currently it is, I think, the fifth or sixth most starred repository on GitHub. So that's amazing. That's really insane. I think the only repositories above Flutter right now are Vue.js, React.js, and a couple of others. But yeah, when we talk about a technology, as I said, it's not always, you know, flowers and roses, right? It's not always good things. We also have to accept the reality for what it is, and we also have to talk about things that you are going to face when you come up and start learning with Flutter. So Flutter has evolved a long way. It has come a long way. It has, since the stable version was launched in 2018 to right now in 2021, it has become even more stable. It has become even more evolved. The ecosystem has grown tenfold, I would say. But if you go to GitHub right now and you go to the issues section, if you have been a developer, or if you have worked with any open source technology, you would know that when you are using an open source technology, then you might face some issues, right? And when you face those issues, you file them as issues on GitHub. So Flutter has actually one of the most one of the highest number of issues opened of any GitHub repository out there, and those are like more than 8,900 plus open issues on GitHub. But what people don't tell you is that they also have closed for more than 45,000 issues, right? And this number is so huge just because it is very easy to create an issue on GitHub for Flutter. It is very easy. For many of the big, technologies or frameworks or SDKs, it is very difficult to create an issue. Once you go to create an issue, there will be this huge template that you'll have to fill out, and the maintainers would be very strict about if you filled out that template or not. They would not listen to you up until you have that standard format and everything. But in Flutter, you can just go ahead and write anything and people will be there to address the issue, right? So that is why, because that, as I was telling earlier about product development, because the friction of creating an issue is very less. That is why more and more people tend to create issues, and most of these issues are maybe duplicated, or they are like origins of the same problem or stuff like that. But I can assure you, as a Flutter community and as a Google representative, because I'm a Google developer expert, so I can speak for the Flutter community and the developer ecosystem around Flutter, that all of us are actually so committed towards making Flutter better, that every single day, people who are in no way related to Google, like now I'm a Google developer expert, but even before I was a Google developer expert, I would voluntarily go to the Flutter issues and try to address the problem to help the people at Google who are, who are facing such a huge inflow of issues every single day, right? And that is how Flutter is built. Flutter is completely open source. Do you folks know what open source is? Please feel free to just unmute yourself and tell me what
Its
open source
source code is
software is.
available to every single person. Like it's on the internet. Its source code is on the internet.
Yeah, that is true. That is absolutely correct. So open source code or anything that is open source, it may not necessarily be technology, although we developers, whenever we talk about, open source, we generally refer to code bases that are open source. But anything, if it is open source, that just means that the entire code base is directly available on the internet. right? And anyone on this planet can clone that code base, can fork that code base, and make changes to it, add suggestions, file issues, can help to take that code base to a better level at as compared to at the level at that it is at right now. That was a very complicated sentence, I'm sorry for that. Anyways, so anyone can help contribute, and anyone can help make the open source software and the code base better. Am I breaking, or is my voice buffering, or is something like that happening?
No, it's clear now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. So because Flutter is open source, because that in itself, the language itself is also open source. You know that. So that, and also that was also developed in-house at Google. So because both of these are open source, a lot of people who do not actually work at Google also have stepped in and contributed towards the development of these two things, Dart and Flutter, and they have made Flutter what it is. In fact, if you look at whenever a new stable version of Flutter is released, the team does a blog post, right? The team does a blog post, and in that blog post, they also mention the top contributors who have, by means of pull requests, who have, made the most contributions to Flutter. And consistently, if I remember, for the past 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 releases, I have seen that the person with the most contributions, with the most pull requests merged, is not a Google employee. No way employed by Google, in no way compensated by Google. That person is just an open source contributor who is voluntarily going ahead and solving problems for Flutter and making it better and better for the entire ecosystem and for the community. So that is the kind of heartwarming effort and gesture that you see in the open source community. So if up until now you were not aware of the open source communities, and if you're not aware about open source software, please, after today's workshop, take a few hours, research about open source software, research about open source communities, and see how you can step in and start contributing to those. But then again, after, I think I've already answered a lot about why you should start using Flutter, so that's more or less done. But sorry, anyways, Flutter is fast, it is smooth, and it is easy. And why is it so? So basically, when Flutter was launched, it was one of the very few, I mean, there are still other cross platform development SDKs like React Native, Xamarin, Cordova, Ionic. All of these are still there, right? And I think the biggest competitor to Flutter right now is React Native. They're also doing really good. But when Flutter was launched, the one USP that Flutter had, that none of these other technologies were able to ensure, was that Flutter came ahead and just put in a claim that whatever you do, I mean, whatever apps you create in Flutter, they are always going to run at 60 fps. So they are always going to be super performant, and they are going to run at least at 60 frames per second. And at that point of time, you didn't have high refresh rate devices. So right now, the range of performance of Flutter is from 60 frames per second to 120 frames per second, depending on the device and depending on how optimized your code is. So if you have a very well optimized code base, and if you have a good performant device, you can, from your Flutter applications, you can expect a complete 120 frames per second performance. That is insane. That is amazing. A lot of big companies, a lot of big apps, a lot of games are not able to ensure 120 frames per second performance. So that is amazing. And this was across devices. So if a device supports Flutter, I mean, it is irrelevant. So if like a very old Galaxy phone, if it supports Flutter apps, right? If it is like a 64-bit device, and if you can run Flutter apps on it, it will still run at 60 fps, perfectly smooth, no lags, no performance whatsoever, right? Then, and if there are any lags, then they are probably because of they are there probably because of an unoptimized code base. You have done something wrong in code. Flutter has not done anything wrong. So if you are able to churn the most out of Flutter, then it will give you super performant applications. Then the second thing is that Flutter is smooth. It is really smooth. The interactions are really smooth. The animations are really smooth. The development experience is very smooth. I mean, I think, as consumers of applications, not thinking about as consumers of applications, but thinking about as developers of applications for a second, what is going to be the most important factor for you folks when you step into the coding journey or when you step into mobile application development? It is going to be the developer experience of the technology that you're working with. So, um, I mean, if you have to work for, let's say, 12 to 14 hours a day, or let's say 8 to 10 hours a day on, coding with a particular technology, coding with a particular framework on an SDK or a language, and the developer experience is not good, you don't feel like working, with it, then it is going to be a nightmare for you. It is definitely going to be a nightmare for you if you had to write code in a language that you didn't, that didn't help you out, that didn't provide a good developer experience. Then developers would just fall out. They would, run away from it. That there would be repulsion rather than attraction, right? People would not want to use the technology. So I think the biggest differentiating factor for all of these projects like Flutter, React Native, etc., is the developer experience, and that is where Flutter shines, absolutely shines. The developer experience is so amazing. I mean, it's so amazing that you can just, once you have started your debug session, you can just go ahead and create the entire app. If your app is small in that way, I mean, that was metaphorical. Obviously, you can't create the entire app in just one sitting. But yeah, if you could, then Flutter allows you to do that, right? So that's just amazing. Also, it is easy. So the learning curve to learn Dart and then get into Flutter is actually not that steep. It's very approachable. The entire Flutter ecosystem is really approachable, and it is really easy to learn. So you can step in at any point of time. Like for example, I think I had these when I was in college. So I would be wasting time, wasting time, wasting time, wasting time, wasting time, and then suddenly at 2 a.m. someday, I would have this, sudden surge of motivation and energy that from tomorrow I'm going to change the world, right? And then I would buy some course, or I would, go to some YouTube series of videos. I would just start watching them, start learning something new. So Flutter is that tech. If you have that sudden surge of inspiration and motivation and energy, you can just go ahead and, pick it up from somewhere, pick it up from YouTube, pick it up through articles, buy a course on Udemy or anything, or go through the course on Udacity or any of these, right? And you will just fall in love with it. You will like the developer experience so much. You will see how approachable it is. You will see real impact, real output so easily that you will just want, you won't be able to get enough of it. You would want more. And that want or that need to get more out of Flutter is what will make you an app developer in the future. Also, I mean, if you have been an Android developer, or if you have tried to go into Android development, you would have heard that a lot of, that everything has to be built from scratch. A lot of things have to be built from scratch. If you have tried to become a web developer, then you would have had your brawl with CSS, right? You have had your brawl. You would have had your brawl with CSS in JavaScript and all of those things. So I don't think can you read this quote once? I love spending hours of my time trying to reinvent the wheel. I wish the world didn't have any pre-built components. Do you think that any professional developer in their right mind can say this? Any professional developer, I genuine question. Do you think that any professional developer in their right mind would say something like this? Why would you go ahead and reinvent the wheel if you already have tires, right? You would not, again go back to square one, cut a circle, find, create a wheel, then create a tire, then, attach rubber to it, etc., etc. Why spend time in doing something that has already been done a million times before, right? So for example, when you open the app, if there is a bottom navigation bar over there, it has been built 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times across millions and billions of apps, right? Okay, may not be a billions of apps, but across millions of apps, it has been built 1,000 times. You should not have to build that bottom navigation bar from square one. If there is an app bar, right? If there is an app bar, if there is a text widget, if there is an image widget, if there is an image, if there is a video player, if there is an audio player, if there is something else, right? That has been done 1,000 times before, that has been used 1,000,000 times before, then you should not have to build everything from scratch. You should have things available that you can just plug and play, right? And you can spend more time on your product rather than these trivial basic use cases. And that is what Flutter ensures. We'll be going through the entire, as to how Flutter ensures this, and you will be seeing as to how easy it is to write declarative code in Flutter, for Flutter using that. Also, I think this is the last slide before those thank you slides come in. So the latest Flutter stable release was Flutter 2.2 during Google I/O. Do you know what Google I/O is? Please feel free to mute and tell me, or put it in the chat. Do you know what Google I/O is?
It's a conference that Google conducts, developer conference.
Yep, that is true. So basically, it is Google I/O is an annual developer-focused conference that Google conducts. That was absolutely true. And in Google I/O, all the teams at Google, so the Android team at Google, the Firebase team at Google, the Flutter team at Google, and all of these teams. In fact, the product teams at Google. So, for example, the Pixel team at Google, and all of these teams come together, and they have this a 2 to 3 day conference wherein they have a lot of talks, they have a lot of presentation, they have a lot of keynotes, wherein they talk to you about what is happening new at Google, what is their plan for the future, what has been the progress of their existing products, and the kind of milestones that they have hit. So in this year's Google I/O, last year's Google I/O was cancelled. This year we had a Google I/O, but there was no in-person attendance. All the talks were online. It was a completely virtual event. That is sad, but what to do? So in this year's Google I/O, the Flutter team, the DevRel team at Flutter, announced Flutter 2.2, and they had just recently, like 2 to 3 months ago, they had announced Flutter 2. So we'll be going in detail about what was announced in Flutter 2 and what was announced in Flutter 2.2, and how is it different. But we should first get to see Flutter code, and that is what we'll be doing right after this. So that was all for the presentation. Now we'll just be writing code. The boring part is over now. I'm sorry it took so long, but yeah, I think we've covered it in 1 hour, so that's good. That's fine. Cool. So questions, 10 to 15 minutes just for questions. I also need some time to give my throat some relaxation. So please shoot your questions. Either put them in the chat, or if you can just unmute yourself and ask me your questions. Any questions up until now? Please have some questions. Any questions, guys? Anything about Flutter? Anything about product development in general? Anything about me? Please ask questions, please.
So you said that this will, run on even old mobile or Galaxy phone or something.
Yeah, 64-bit devices.
Yeah. So this Flutter app, the Flutter development isn't hardware dependent.
I'm sorry, what dependent?
Hardware. Are the apps not hardware dependent?
Yeah, I mean, definitely they are hardware dependent, but it also depends on the use cases that they are adhering to. So for example, if you want to address the camera SDK, if you want to use the camera plugin with Flutter, right? If you want to open up a camera inside your Flutter application, you can't do it for SDK version below 21, because it was released in SDK version 21. It was released in Android SDK version 21. So you can't do it before that. So if a phone is running SDK version below 21, then you can't do it. So I think SDK version 21 is for ice cream So if someone has like I think what was the Android version before ice cream sandwich? I think it was ginger or something. So if someone has like that kind of a phone, then it won't run, obviously. The app might run, but that particular use case, when you come to that use case, the app might crash or something. So it is definitely hardware dependent. But yeah, there are certain minimum requirements that a device needs to fulfill in order to run these applications. But most of our phones, 99.9% of our phones, 99.9999% of our phones can run Flutter applications, no problem at all.
Okay.
Anything else? Anything else? Please ask good questions, please.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes,
Uh,
Akash.
how great the Flutter support other libraries? Like it support other libraries. I got this question from our participant. How great
Uh,
Flutter is on supporting other libraries?
oh, how great is the support for other libraries when you're developing apps for Flutter?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, you have. So yeah, I was going to show you guys doing the code, but I'll just show you now since we have had a good question. So for if you have a technology like Flutter, if you have a framework or an SDK like Flutter, you definitely need to have an ecosystem built around it. Since you are going to be developing your app in Flutter, you will need a lot of help in doing so, right? And this is pub.dev. This is like npm for JavaScript. So all the packages, all the plugins that are created for Flutter are are published over here. People, either some people also just keep it on GitHub and you can directly depend on those plugins from there, but most people publish it over here because this is more, this is just more convenient for developers to use and for maintainers to maintain. So pub.dev has all the different plugins. There are thousands of plugins across verticals, across different use cases, across different functionalities, and these plugins can add a lot of value to your Flutter applications. So and also so across other major services, for example, let's say AWS Amplify. AWS Amplify is a service, right, that you can use to provide a backend as a service for your app. So AWS Amplify, they have also built a Flutter SDK now. There are different third-party services like CleverTap, Mixpanel, um, Firebase. Firebase though is definitely a Google product. So all the Firebase services across all verticals have Flutter plugins, dedicated Flutter plugins that you can directly just plug in and use into your application. Microsoft is investing heavily into the tooling of for Flutter and of Flutter. Sony is investing heavily for the tooling for Flutter. The Linux Foundation and Ubuntu. What I don't know what the name of the company is. I forgot. They have also invested heavily into the tooling of Flutter. So all the third-party services and all the major services that you would want to use with your application either already have a Flutter SDK or have an unofficial Flutter SDK because someone from the community had that use case and they ended up creating a plugin for them. So they might have an official plugin, they might have an unofficial plugin, or they might have a plugin that is currently in development or in the pipeline. I know like a few services that I have had to use, but since their official Flutter SDK was not available, I had to use either the unofficial ones or I had to make some implementation of my own. But that is just 1% of the use case. 99% of the times you will always find that there is a Flutter SDK or a Flutter implementation example that is available for you for any of the popular services. And for the not so popular services, you can actually go ahead and implement it on your own, because they would definitely have an implementation for Android. They would definitely have an implementation for iOS. They would definitely have an implementation for web. And that is the beauty of Flutter, that you don't have to necessarily write code in Dart. You can also go ahead and do the native development on Android, iOS, web, or whatever platform you're targeting, and you can link it back to your Flutter application, or link your Flutter application to the native code that you have written via something called method channels. So that is kind of an advanced concept of Flutter, and we will not be discussing it in detail in this workshop. But I mean, I've given you the keyword. Google is yours. So just go ahead and you should be able to find it. Interesting question. Akash, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please don't call me sir. Please, my name is Ayush.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we have a very good question. So from please can you please help me with the
Yeah,
pronunciation of your name?
Shrutilaya.
Shrutilya. Shrutilya. Am I saying that right?
Shrutilaya. It's
Any
okay. Laya. Okay, just
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Shrutilaya. So okay. So Shrutilaya asks why many companies still didn't adapt to Flutter, though it's very much developer friendly. Is there any security issues or are there any drawbacks? Very controversial questions. Very controversial question, and I would love to answer this. So just put this into perspective. Okay, all the new companies, people who are building new products will consider Flutter as their first choice. Will consider Flutter as their first choice. All the existing companies and all the big companies will not consider Flutter for their existing products. And I can give you the statement in written. Do you want to know why? Does anyone want to take a guess why? Try to think practically as to why I would be saying this. Why would I mean, since the developer experience is so good, since it is so amazing, everything is so amazing about Flutter, so why is Google not migrating all of its products to Flutter? Why is Microsoft not migrating all of its products to Flutter? Why is this not happening? Can you tell me a reason? Make a guess.
Because the program is too big to like write it again, and some problem may occur.
Yeah, true. Anything else? Anyone else wants to take a dig at it?
It's an open source code base.
Um, Maybe, I don't know. Anything else? Any other reasons? Anything, and just let your speculative mind run free. My living is via Flutter. What kind of a question is that? I have made my career in Flutter. I'm a Google developer expert in Flutter. I am 100% in favor of Flutter, not React Native. Please, if I say React Native, I won't get any talks in the future, man. Or girl, whoever it is. No, it is not because of that. Okay, I will tell you. So if you make a tech company, for example, let's say Swiggy, okay, I am not going into the big companies. Unka to, it's just a different scene altogether. But let's just say take Swiggy as an example. Swiggy has been in business for about what, like 6-7 years now, maybe more, right? So if you consider the example of Swiggy, then you will see now that when they started, they didn't have Flutter, right? So they had to build their apps in native. They had to build their app in Java with normal XML, etc. They had to build their iOS app with Swift or Objective-C, and they had to create it, right? I think I gave you a rough estimate as to the number of lines of code in our current code base at FrontRow also, right? So in just 1 odd year, in just 1.5 years that FrontRow has been in existence, we now have a code base of 200,000 lines of code. Swiggy has been in existence for 7-8 years. Imagine how many lines of code would that be on either side, on Android side as well as on iOS side. It would be at least 1 million lines of code. At least. You can speculate. This is just a guess, but it would at least be 1 million lines of code, right? Now, suddenly someone comes and says, hey, this is Flutter. This is amazing. Your entire team will be blown away when they use Flutter. All you have to do is just migrate those 1 million lines of code to Flutter. Do you think that any established company in their right mind will stop focusing on their product, stop focusing on their business, stop focusing on what makes their product successful, and just say, hey, Flutter is so amazing, let's migrate 1 million lines of code to Flutter. Let's rewrite it. As our friend was pointing out, any company in their right mind would never do it. Why would they do it? If I was running a company, I am a Google developer expert for Flutter. But even if I was running a company or I was working in a company where I was working directly with Android or iOS and we had 1 million lines of code, I would not risk the entire sanctity of my code base into a migration for something that is new and flashy and catchy. I would not do that. Most of these big companies who already have code bases have invested millions of dollars in these code bases. They have invested a lot of time, effort, and money and resources into getting these code bases to what they are currently. They can't migrate out of it. It is impossible. It is practically not feasible at all. That is why the big companies don't do it, but some do it. Like for example, the BMW have built their app in Flutter. They migrated to Flutter. They eBay, for one of their apps, they migrated to Flutter. So if you have like the bandwidth for it, they do it, right? But most cases, 99.99999% of cases, they will not do it. Why will they do it? They do not have the incentive to do it, right? They would rather, focus on their product. They would rather focus on their customers. They would rather focus on growing their business because they already have that existing code base. Why would they spend too much of time and effort and energy and developer and dev hours on something that is new and flashy and catchy? No matter how good that is, I won't spend that time and energy in migration. That is the reason. There are no security issues or drawbacks, by the way. Flutter is completely production friendly, and you are ready to, once you start developing Flutter, you are ready to go live. No problems at all. Cool. I think that answers your question. Any other questions? Is it because Google is not going to stop providing support for Flutter in the future? In fact, not in the near future, at least for the next 10 years, Flutter is not going anywhere because Google has planned out Flutter for Fuchsia. Fuchsia is the new open source operating system that is going to be coming from Google, and it is supposed to be a futuristic operating system. And the default language and the default framework for building apps for Fuchsia is Flutter. I mean, if you didn't know about that, you know now. So Flutter is a technology of the future, and it was created and released before so that more and more developers could be, onboarded onto it. Basically, it's like a stepping stone towards the future. So you learn Flutter now, so you are ready for the future. You are ready when Fuchsia launches across billions of devices across the globe. So you will already have apps that are ready to run on Fuchsia. So that's not going to happen anytime in the near or distant future. Google is not going to stop providing support for Flutter. I know where you're coming from, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. That is what I was saying now, that Flutter, the learning curve for Flutter is not too much. And you are not, if someone is not good at object-oriented programming, they are not good today. Who is to say that they won't be good tomorrow or in a week or maybe in a month or maybe in a year? You just have to put in the right amount of effort in, and that is for learning anything, by the way. That is for learning or getting onboarded with anything. All you have to do is put in the right amount of effort, and you can learn anything, be it Flutter, be it Dart, be it React Native, be it JavaScript, be it web development, Android development using Java, Kotlin, Swift, Objective-C, Rust, Scala, anything. You can learn anything if you put in the right amount of effort. And Flutter is pretty easy, by the way. It's very easy to get onboarded with it. But yeah, to become an expert in Flutter, to become a good mobile application developer, that won't be that easy. Definitely, it won't be that easy. Flutter is a very approachable language. Flutter is a very approachable community as it is, but nobody can spare the effort that it takes to be a good developer. You have to go through that phase wherein you put in those hours, you put in that effort to become a good developer in Flutter and in object-oriented programming in general. I think that answers your question, Yashwant. Anything else, guys? Any folks, any other questions, any other doubts that you have, any inputs that you want to tell me? Anything at all?
Ayush, I think we'll take the questions a little later, maybe, if you don't mind. We'll start with the hands-on session, and then we'll come back to the questions maybe a little later.
Yep, I think we have already spent like 13 minutes on it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Cool, perfect. Shekhar. Let's learn Flutter. But how will we learn Flutter? Okay, let's create a new Flutter project. Acha, before doing this, everyone has Flutter installed, right? I am hoping that everyone has Flutter installed. I am hoping that everyone has Flutter set up. They are able to run Flutter Doctor. If you are not, then just look over here. Anyways, you should see an output like this. This is not a good output. I should show you probably a good output. Yeah, I think my Flutter might be messed up. Wow, this is not good. Anyways, so are you able to run Flutter Doctor? Are you able to, see that, the output of Flutter Doctor in your terminal? I hope so. So in order to create a new Flutter project, I mean, from this point onwards, there is actually no going back. So if you can't, then I really can't help it. But the command to create a new Flutter project is Flutter create. So you write Flutter create, and then let's call this app. Um, just call this app. What can we call this app? Can you give me some name suggestions for this app? Just random name suggestions that what can we call this app? Any suggestions? Just put them in the chat, please. Any suggestions at all? Whatever you tell me, I will just name this app that. The first, whoever gives the first app name, that is going to be the app name. Please don't put any NSFW content. Apart from that, anything works. Give me a name, give me a name, give me a name, please. Flutter app is too generic. Give me some fun name, no? Mark 1. Got it. Mark 1. Okay, so our Flutter app is now named Mark 1. Okay, and when you run Flutter create Mark 1, basically, please name your app also this so that we are all on the same page at all times. You have to run this command in your terminal, Flutter create Mark 1. And this will just go through everything and it will, create everything and all of those things. So now you have to cd into Mark 1, like change directory to Mark 1, and then open it in the IDE of your choice. You can open it in any integrated development environment. You would have installed Android Studio while you were installing Flutter. That was there on the documentation, that was there on the page. So if you want to open it in Android Studio, feel free to do so. I am going to do this in VS Code since I use VS Code. So if you want to follow along with me, and maybe if you don't want to go through Android Studio, you want to go through VS Code, then it's a very simple installation process. You can just do that right now if you want to do it. Cool. So because I think for the next 10-15 minutes, I'll be explaining the file structure and everything about Flutter. And how does this go away? How can I make it go away? This is control option command H. Control option command H. Perfect. So you can just go to VS Code and you can download it for whatever operating system you are on. Right, currently I am on Mac, so if I would download it for Mac. You can download it for Linux or Windows or whatever, and just quickly install it. It is super easy to do. And yeah, so I am just opening this in VS Code now. Oh, sorry. Why is the Flutter daemon terminated? It should not happen. I am currently on Flutter 1.22.6. You would currently be on Flutter 2.2 or something. That is not a problem. I use this is my Flutter version because I use this. I have to use this for my company's application. So that's why. Just give me a second. I will make my phone ready. Yeah, let me just quickly check if I have any messages or anything. Nope, I do not have any messages or anything. Perfect. We can go ahead and try to run this. Let's see. Folks, I might have to restart my computer once. This has been a problem for me for the past couple of days. I will come back in a bit. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure.
Hello.
Also,
Yeah,
there's a
I will just
question
come back.
here in the chat.
Yeah, just a second. I will open the chat. Yep. Hi, what extensions do we have to install for VS Code? Yeah, there will be a Flutter and Dart extension. So if you open, I'll show you that I can show you. Extensions, go to Flutter. If you search for Flutter, then you will see this Flutter extension. When you go ahead to install this, it will prompt you that it requires the Dart extension to be installed as well. So it will just install that also, right? So just install Flutter and Dart, these two extensions. These will make your life a lot easier. Cool. Anything else? Ajay, I will just come back. Give me a second. I'll just quickly come back.
So hopefully you got to understand a few of the insights that he was trying to say. So we'll just wait for him to return. And if you guys have any questions or any software that has to be downloaded or yet to be, started or anything, just do it right away so that you have an amazing experience forward. Because after this, it's all going to be a hands-on session. So make sure all your packages and all your requirements are downloaded and kept ready. And if you're having any questions also, please be ready for it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mama Ayush has gone, like he wanted to restart his system. So he said he'll join us 2 minutes.
Okay, I was just checking on again, join back again the button class. I thought no. Okay, fine.
Yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, others are also downloading the packages he mentioned. So the participants are doing.
Hello, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just quickly. Yeah, I hope I'm audible right now. I will just quickly share my screen again. Oh, host has disabled participant screen sharing. Can you make me
Oh,
a
one
host?
second, one second. Sorry. Yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
Check now.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so now I can probably run this. You can run this app on either an emulator or on your Android devices. That's completely fine. Either way is fine. If you have an iOS device, then I'd probably, prefer that if you run this on your emulator. So basically on your VS Code or whatever you have open, wherever the devices are being displayed, somewhere it would be written no devices, right? So over there, you have to just go, like for in VS Code, it is over here. You have to click on over here and it will give you these options. So if you have a device connected, like for example, right now I have my phone connected, it is showing me my phone. So if you do not have your phone connected, then you can just go ahead and create an Android emulator. You can go ahead and create an Android emulator. You can just create an Android emulator and it will create one for you. Okay. And if you have installed Android Studio correctly, right now my Android Studio is messed up for some reason. But if you have installed Android Studio for the first time, it would be perfect. And you can just go ahead and create an Android emulator so that you can run your application over there. I'm just going to be running this on my phone, right? And I will mirror my phone so that you are able to see it on the screen. I know, I mean, I know for a fact that practically most of these like live coding sessions, what happens is that generally people are not able to, get up and running very fast. That happens. And I know that this is going to happen in this workshop also. A lot of people would not be able to get up and running uh, with their applications, but at this point of time we can't do anything about it. So we'll just I would just want you to focus on the screen and pay attention to whatever code I'm writing or whatever I'm trying to explain. This will give you a good idea of Flutter, and then I am reachable throughout, right? So whenever you are, am I buffering? Am I audible normally? Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. No problem.
Okay, okay. And the अचानक से this Zoom gives me this notification. Participants can now see your screen. So I feel कि okay, that might have been some lag. Anyways, so I was saying that please pay attention to the screen throughout this workshop, and please pay attention to whatever I'm trying to explain. And if you're not able to do it with me, because this is not a physical workshop, that is one of the vices that we have to live with, right? So if you are not able to do it with me, let's not spend a lot of time in getting it set up and done, because that is just going to take away the reduce the learnings that you can actually get out of this workshop. And I will be available beyond this workshop. I will be available for you to connect with after this workshop, and you will have like a plethora of resources to get yourself up and running. So if you are up and running, it's great. If you're not, please pay attention to the screen, right? And don't spend your time fiddling with Flutter. It won't happen in a stressful situation. Cool. So cool. I will just quickly run this app and it will start running. Let it run. For the whenever you create a new Flutter project, for the first one it takes some time, but after that it is just fine. So yeah, meanwhile I will just quickly explain what is the folder structure of a new Flutter application, what each file does, and how we are going to be writing code, where we are going to be writing code, how that translates to the screen and everything, right? So cool. You can see these are like generated folders. These are system folders. So these will be very specific to the system that you are on. So dot .id and dot .tal, Dart tool, these are just internal tooling folders. You don't have to mess with these. These are just system generated. All of these are system generated, but you do not have to care about these normally, right? Um, when you create a new Flutter project, then right now for you, you might be seeing multiple folders over here. You might be seeing Android, iOS, you might be seeing web. If you're on Windows, you might be seeing Windows. If you're on Mac, you might be seeing Windows, Mac. You might be seeing those folders, right? So I will just give you a general idea as to what each platform folder does, right? Now see, each platform has their own developer ecosystem, right? Each platform has their own developer ecosystem. They have their own methods using which you can develop applications for that platform, correct? So for example, Windows has their own developer ecosystem, Android has their own developer ecosystem, iOS has their own developer ecosystem, Mac OS, etc., etc. All of these have their own developer ecosystems, right? Now, as a cross-platform SDK, if Flutter has to target all of these ecosystems, then you can't expect them to just you can't expect them to just uh, accept whatever tooling you are giving them. You can't expect them to accept your technology as an executable file for their platform. You have to play by their rules. If you are developing for, let's say, Android, you have to play by the rules of Android. If you're developing for iOS, you have to play by their rules. If you're developing for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, for each individual platform, you have to play by their rules. Okay. Now what happens is that when you have when you're developing a Flutter, you will be writing code in Dart. You will be creating a Flutter application, but Flutter internally, sorry, Flutter internally, the technology, what will it be doing is that internally it will be translating all the code that you write into a into something that can be compiled. I'm so sorry, I'll just drink water and come. Yep, sorry for that. So I was saying you will be writing code in Dart, you will be writing code with Flutter, you will be creating a Flutter application, but Flutter internally will then be translating all of that into an executable file for the respective platforms, right? For whatever platform you are targeting. So if you're targeting the Android platform, Flutter will then create your application using the Android, Android development tools, and then you know churn out an APK for you, right? If you are creating an application for iOS, then using the iOS development tools, Flutter internally will create an IPA for you, right? That you can install on iPhones or iOS devices. Similarly, an exe file for Windows and a .app file for Mac, and so on and so forth, right? So using Flutter, you can write code that runs across platforms, but you still need that tooling. You still need, the individual tooling for all the different platforms, right? That is still needed. So don't, we should not be under this assumption that if we are creating a Flutter application, then, it's just Flutter and nothing else. No, all the individual platform toolings are also involved in the process, right? Okay. Moving forward, so all of these system generated folders that you will see, if you see Android over here, if you see iOS over here, right now we'll be creating application only for Android. We'll be running it on Android only. I can run it on iOS as well and show you. Okay, no problem. But right now the Flutter project that we have created targets only Android and iOS. Okay, so the Android folder is generated over here and iOS folder is generated over here. These in itself are also independent projects. These are independent, and this is an independent Android app project. This has like a complete folder structure of how an Android app project is, and iOS also same. This also has a complete folder structure of how a native iOS project is, right? So because all of the other things are still required. Just the source code is going to be in Dart, right? So yep, that is there. Then another important folder is the build folder. This build folder is something that you can just go ahead and delete. I can delete this right now. This is there because I've run this application right now on my phone. It is running. I will show that to you in a bit as to whatever is running and what that app is. But this build folder is created whenever you run your application or whenever you build your application for it to be able to run on devices. Then this build folder is generated. Then you have the test folder in which you can write all the tests for your code. We won't be writing any tests in this workshop. But you can write all the tests for your code base over here in this test folder. It is there. There is a Git Ignore file. Okay, another quick question. Can anybody tell me what is a Git Ignore file or what is Git in general, and then what is a Git Ignore file?
Git is basically like you store your code and like in online or something. Then Git Ignore it is to like basically ignore some kind of files like an environment files or something like that.
Got it. That is a good explanation. Anybody else wants to give a try? What is Git and what is Git Ignore? What is a Git Ignore file? Okay, just tell me what is Git. Anybody else? Anyone? What is Git? Anyone? Please tell me what is Git. Who created Git? Please don't Google right now. If you know, just please tell me. Folks, there are 41 people right now. And I would love if 5-6 people were able to tell me that what is Git. Anybody? Cool. Is it that you don't know, or is it that you don't want to talk to me? Am I like too intimidating or something? I don't think I'm too intimidating.
Can I say?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Basically, Git is a version control system. So whatever code you write in the VS Code, those code you can store in online or something. So it's basically a code management tool, and we can switch to previous version of our code. So that's what I know about Git.
Perfect. That is the perfect phrase that you use. Git is a version control system. It was actually created by Linus Torvalds, who is the creator of Linux, who created, the Linux operating system. So Git is now the Git has a foundation of its own, and it is managed by, it is open source, it is managed by people. But Git originally was created by him, and Git is a version control system. What we mean by version control system is that whatever code you're writing or whatever text, in fact, it runs on a difference algorithm, right? Git is basically like it runs on a difference algorithm. So whatever code you write, it finds out the differences that you have created between the last version and the new version. So you can create different versions of your code and you can spread them across different commits. So maybe, whenever you initialize, like for example, in this project, if I initialize Git, right, then I will create a Git repository over here. And in this Git repository, then whenever I'm working on something, right? So Git also enables a lot of teamwork. So for example, let's say, let's take the example of the FrontRow app that we have, okay, that I work on. So FrontRow app is a huge code base, right? Not everyone can be aware of everything that is happening in all parts of the code base, right? Because there are multiple people in the team. There are 7 people in the team, and 7 people are working on different features, different bug fixes, different things, right? So you don't know about those things. And because you don't know about those things, then what will happen is that somebody might be working on something else, somebody might be working on something else, and then you don't know if everyone is just working on the same code base at the same time. Then there are bound to be conflicts, right? There are bound to be so many conflicts, and you won't know who changed which line of code, right? And it will just be a mess. So your code base can't work like that. Your development or your engineering team cannot work like that. So what happens is that whenever there is one stable branch, basically then you have to understand the concept of branches. So there are different branches that you can create out of your code base. There is this one code base. You will have one branch of code that is always stable, right? This is the stable code. And this is something that we have to build upon. Then if I am taking up a new feature, I will create a new branch out of that stable branch, right? Then let's say that most popularly nowadays that a branch is either called master or main. Okay, so there is this main branch. You will branch out of the main branch and then create a new branch for whatever feature that you have to work on. The other 6 to 7 people in my team will do the same. They will do the same, right? They will work on their own feature. Okay, and then now that everyone is working on their feature, what we will do is that once we are done with our work, then using Git, we will create a pull request, or we will create a pull request to merge those features back into the main branch. And then we will see that whatever difference has been created, whatever changes has been made, we'll review the changes and then merge it back into the main branch so that the workflow is maintained, right? Not everybody can work on the same file at the same time, right? So that is something that is ensured by Git. Then there is a concept of versions. So for example, if I know that I will, if I maintain proper versioning of my code, so let's say I pushed something wrong. Let's say I pushed a bug in 1.7.2. Let's say in version 1.7.2 that I released, I pushed a bug, right? Because of that, my users are facing some issue. Okay, so now because I have versioned my code properly, I have maintained proper versioning of my code base, I know that this bug was not there in 1.7.1. I have introduced this as a regression in 1.7.2, right? I don't know if you've already gone through the different kinds of tests that are there. I don't know if that course is there for you right now, but you would be learning about all of these. You would be learning about regressions. You would be learning about bugs. You would be learning about different kinds of testing. I think that is there in pre-final year or final year. One paper is there. I think that is a software engineering paper, right, ma'am? The software engineering paper. I think that has all of these.
Yeah, we had a subject software engineering and project management.
Usme there will be there. You will have different kinds of code architectures. You will have different kinds of testing. So all of those things, you would find them to be too theoretical, and you would not want to study them. But they're actually real things that you should know, and you will be using in the industry. One of the very few things, right? So anyways, so coming circling back, if I know कि 1.7.1 में this problem was not there, so I can just roll back to 1.7.1 and release that to my users, right? While I fix the problem that I introduced in 1.7.2. So proper versioning of code can be a lifesaver and is a lifesaver for millions of developers and billions of users every single day, right? So that is what Git ensures. And .git ignore file, as our friend correctly pointed out, it's correct. It just has these patterns that you can define, or the file extensions that you can define, and these files will not be made a part of Git, because these are just system generated files. You don't want, these are not code files, so you don't want to maintain a version history of these are very specific to the local system, your computer, right? Okay, perfect. Then there is a .metadata file. This is also a system generated file that tracks the properties of the Flutter project. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about this literally. You won't be using this actively. Then there are 2-3 important files. Okay, please pay attention. Pubspec.yaml file. Pubspec.yaml file. YAML in itself is a tool, or is a pattern of writing that we use for creating configurations. Pubspec.yaml serves the same purpose in a Flutter project. This is an extremely important file, and you are going to be using it on a daily basis if you become a Flutter developer, because this has all the configurations that are required for a Flutter project, right? So starting, we'll go through every field one by one. First is the name of a Flutter project, right? So right now the name of our Flutter project is Mark1, right? So this just says the name Mark1. Okay, cool, perfect. Then the description of the Flutter project. This you can write anything, right? But this just gives anyone who comes to see your Flutter code base, will open your pubspec.yaml file first, because so there are two files, one readme file and one pubspec.yaml file. So if your readme file is not very intuitive and is not very informative, then they will open your pubspec.yaml file first, and most of the information that they need from a technical standpoint, they will get it from the pubspec.yaml file. This is the configuration of your Flutter project, right? So you have the name, you have the description of your Flutter project. We can change this actually. Let's change this. Let's keep the description to this is an awesome app that will be built for as for innovative students. Okay, innovative students and their ideas. I'm writing just anything anyways. So this is a description. Okay, then there is this publish to. What this means is that in Flutter you can either create an application or you can create a package or a plugin also, right? As I showed you, in Flutter you have this pub.dev. Now this is like a central repository of all the plugins and packages that have been built for Flutter, right? And we'll actually be using some of these plugins and packages as we move forward in this workshop, right? So in pub.dev you have all the plugins and packages. So if you are creating an app, then you have to set this to none, because we do not want to publish our app to pub.dev. Pub.dev is for packages and plugins. But if you're creating a package or a plugin, you will still have this pubspec.yaml file, and you will be able to publish it to pub.dev. So you can just remove this line, and then you can, if you run this command publish, then you will be able to publish your packages. Then there is a version over here. So to understand this version, basically this is the semantic version. This is the version that people see when you publish your app. So when I publish FrontRow, then people see whatever version I have created right now. So the new version that is going to be go live is 1.9.0 and the build number is 70. So this is the version that people see, and this after the plus sign, whatever is there now. So there is, I will just separate it out for a bit. So this 1.0.0, this is the version that is the user facing version. This is what users see. And this is the version that is the build number of your of your app. So for example, this is to keep track of, let's say, whatever build is going. So for example, if the first build is going, I'll just put it as 1. If the second build is going, I will just put it as 2. So the increment goes in this way. At least we at FrontRow do it in this way. A lot of people have different ideologies and theories for updating their versions. But how they do this is that whenever a new release or a new update is going to our app, we increment this version up until it reaches 9. So for example, if this is 1.0.0 plus 1, then we will have another version that says 1.0.1 plus 2. Then it will be 3 and this will be 2, right? And so on and so forth. As soon as we reach 9 over here, then we will increment this. So 1.1.0 and then whatever the corresponding number is over here is. But over here there's no limit. This can go, just keep on growing continuously. There is no upper limit for it, the build number, right? So I will just circle back to 1 right now. This was about versioning. Then you have the environment. This is the this environment over here is the Dart SDK environment. So currently we are using the Dart SDK environment that is greater than equal to 2.7.0, the Dart version, and less than 3.0.0. This might be different for you people if you have created a new Flutter project, because you would be on more stable versions and updated versions of Flutter, right? Then then come the dependencies, right? See, every Flutter project is a Dart project, but every Dart project is not a Flutter project, because Dart is at the core. Dart is a language, right? So say for example, to draw a parallel, maybe every Spring Boot project is a Java project, but every Java project is not a Spring Boot project, right? So similarly, that is how it works. So now we come to the dependencies. The first dependency obviously is Flutter itself. You need Flutter to be able to create a Flutter application, right? So the first dependency is Flutter itself. Then right now we do not have any other dependencies as such because we haven't added any packages or any plugins or anything. But moving forward, if we want to add certain specific functionality, like let's say the functionality of making an API call, right? Then we will need to add some packages and plugins. So that is why we do not have any more packages or plugins over here. We can see one though. We can see one package though. This is the Cupertino icons package. This is like, for example, I don't know. Have you heard about material design? Can anybody tell me what is material design?
Design used by Google for Android.
Yep, that is true. And not just for Android, it's for, I mean, multiple platforms or for Flutter as well, right? So material design is basically a design system that was evolved and created by Google, right? Similarly, as we have material on the Android end and the Google part of it, for Apple, the equivalent is Cupertino, right? There's a Cupertino design system. And the Cupertino is actually also a city in California. You can Google it after this workshop, not during it. So anyways, so there is a package that Google has automatically put themselves in the boilerplate code. We call, by the way, we call this boilerplate code, right? We don't, whatever the system gives you, we call it boilerplate code. And whatever you have to write as the base for writing more code is called boilerplate code. Okay. So all of this is boilerplate code. This is what Google has given you as the starting point. So we are not going to remove it. You can if you want to, but yeah, this is a dependency that gives you. Actually, you can go ahead and see what this does. So I will just copy it from here. Go to pub.dev. And I can see that there is this whole page for this package, and you can see that it gives you all the icons that you can then use on iOS. So all the iOS specific icons, all the Cupertino design system icons, this package gives you. Okay. So and this since now we're already on the topic of adding dependencies, this is how we add dependencies. You just go to pub.dev, you search for a particular package, let's say Cupertino icons. Cupertino icons, you search for it, you press enter, it will get searched, you then click on it, then this page will open for that dependency. Then you go to installing, then you go to installing. You can either do it like this, or what I just do is copy this over here, dependencies, Cupertino icons 1.0.3, whatever is written, I just copy it from here and then paste it right over here inside dependencies alongside this in this line. So if I had to paste this, I will just put it over here like this. I didn't copy. I can just put it over here like this, right? I mean, we already have Cupertino icon, so I can't put it right now. But yeah, I can do this. Okay, this is how it's done. Anyways, so circling back, this is how you add dependencies. You can also add dependencies directly from GitHub, but I would love for you to explore that on your own. Then these were the dependencies. Now these are the dev dependencies. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what might be the difference between dependencies and dev dependencies? I think the name should give it away, but do you want to guess? Anybody wants to tell me what might be the difference between dependencies and dev dependencies?
Dependencies is probably the requirements for the app to run, and dev dependencies are to create the app.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. Can I know your name? Who was this?
Srinivas.
Srinivas, that was amazing. That is actually perfectly how it's supposed to be. So dependencies are something, whatever you put inside dependencies, these are essential for the app to run. These are the requirements for the app to run, right? But whatever you put inside dev dependencies, these are just for development purposes. It is not that they are going to impact how your app is going to run, right? These are just going to impact how you are going through your development process. I cannot have any dev dependencies as well. I can just remove Flutter test. It will not, do anything. It will not, make any difference, right? So that is there. That is absolutely correct. Okay. So whatever, I mean, as you learn more and more about Flutter, and you will come across terms like code generation, you will come across terms like build runner. So all of those things you will have to add as dev dependencies, because your development work and your coding will depend on it, not your final outcome, right? Okay. Then we come to the Flutter section. This is where you can add your assets. So when you're creating an application, then you would want to be, creating assets, right? You would want to have different assets. For example, if you want to show an image that you want bundled with your application, right? Not a URL, just an image that you want bundled inside your application, right? Maybe an icon, maybe an image, maybe a video, maybe an audio file, right? These things you might want bundled with your application. So if there is something like that, then you can put it over here as assets over here, like here. This is okay. So you can just define them as assets over here, put them inside an assets folder, and just mention the path over here. And what Flutter will do is that Flutter will pick them up and make it a part of the compiled package. Okay, so make it a part of the package. So if you create an APK after that, these images are going to be shipped with that APK. They will be a part of that APK. Okay, so you can add images, videos, audio, whatever you want. Then you can also, I'm just going to comment it right now. You can also go ahead and add fonts. So sometimes you would want custom fonts. Sometimes, most of the times, whenever you're working in a professional environment, the company would have a font of their own, right? I mean, not necessarily developed by them, but they would be using a specific font for everything that they do to maintain consistency and to maintain, a brand feel across everything that they do, right? So right now you can you have seen that Flutter has given you an option to add Skylar or Trajan Pro or something. You can add any font that you want, right? Any font that you want, you can just go ahead and bundle the font ka TTF or OTF file along with the APK, and when you create the APK, it will just be bundled along with the APK. Okay, it will be shipped along with it. So this was about pubspec.yaml. Now, if you have the Flutter and Dart extensions installed on VS Code, as soon as you hit save on pubspec.yaml, right, this will automatically run a command flutter pub get. So whatever commands we have seen right now, we have seen flutter doctor that gives you the installation status of Flutter. Then we have seen flutter create, using which we actually created Flutter, a new Flutter project. Then I think you would have seen me run Flutter clean. What Flutter clean does is that it just deletes this build folder and cleans up all the build files, all the temporary files, so that you can run a new fresh build again, right? Sometimes that is required. So Flutter clean. Then there is this command called flutter pub get. You have seen this word pub before, right? This was pub.dev. This is the repository. So pub is like the dependency management tool for Flutter. So once you do flutter pub get, what this command does is that the Flutter tool will just go through your pubspec.yaml file, and it will fetch all the new dependencies that you have added. It will remove any dependency that you might have removed. It might update the version, etc., etc. All of that is done using flutter pub get, right? So if you just run flutter pub get, it will do all of those things. Okay. Cool. Then there is a pubspec.log file. You don't have to touch this. This should not be touched by hand. You do not have to edit it. This is just like a this is just like a repository or a directory of all the packages that your that your project depends on. So when you add a new package, for example, Cupertino icons, right? This is like a very simple package, but you might add a very complicated package, something that is very specific, and that package might depend on some other packages also. So it can be nested. For example, this package A can depend on B and B can depend on C. So when you add A, then it also has to add B and C in the background in order for A to work, right? So for that, what it does is that you will not see B and C over here because you added only A, right? But then your Flutter project needs to know that B and C are also there, and B and C are also supposed to be bundled along with it in order to go ahead and create your Flutter application. So when was the break plan? 1:30, right?
Yeah, 1:30.
Got it. We still have 20 minutes. Fair. So in order to fetch B and C and D and E or whatever A is dependent on, this file is used. You don't have to, I mean, let me just get rid of this. You don't have to edit it yourself. Flutter will do it for you. As soon as you run Flutter get, this file will automatically get updated. Okay. Then pubspec.yaml we have seen. Then there is a README file. So a README file is a very simple file basically. Any open source project, if I just open GitHub right now. So I will just open GitHub. See, this is the official Flutter repository. This is the open source repository, right? And see, this is the README file. So people create beautiful, intuitive, informative README files so that whenever you come to a GitHub page or a Git, an open source page of any code base like Flutter or like React Native or anyone. So I can just maybe search for React Native. See, Facebook React Native. React Native is actually a Facebook thing. So if you scroll down, you will see that they have also created a README file, right? They have also created a README file. Similarly, anything. It's basically like anything. Let's say Dart language. They have also created a README file. So anything like, for example, VS Code. VS Code is also open source. Microsoft VS Code. They have also created a README file, right? So, and this README file is just a gist of the entire product. Okay, this is just a gist of the entire project. This just gives you a brief intro about what the product is and how you can start contributing to the product, right? So it is a good idea that whenever you are creating your code bases and sharing it on GitHub, please create a README file. It gives whoever comes to your code base, it gives them a quick overview of what your project is and how they can run it, test it, contribute to it, etc., right? So that was about the README files. Now that we've gone through all the entire files and folder structure, we will come back to LIB because this is where we'll be spending all of our time. Okay, this is where we'll be spending all of our time. This is where we'll be writing our source code, right? This is where we'll be writing our source code. So in the LIB folder, our source code will go, right? And in LIB, there is necessarily we need to have a main.dart file. This, as you can see, the extension is .dart. It is not .java or anything because we are going to be writing in the Dart language, right? So the extension is .dart. So there necessarily needs to be a main.dart file. Main.dart file is the point of invocation. Like if you have, I think you would have worked with Java, right? Have you worked with Java? All of you? You would have worked with Java at some point of the other, right?
Yeah.
Please say something. Yeah. So if you've worked with Java, then you would know that there is a main function, right? Whenever you run a new Java project, there is a main function, and through that main function, then everything else runs, right? Similar is the case with Flutter. Okay. Similar is the case with Flutter. You need to necessarily have a main.dart file over here, and that main.dart file needs to necessarily have a main function. Okay. And this main function is your point of invocation for any Dart project. You create any Dart project, this main function inside this main.dart file is going to be your point of invocation, wherein you are going to be running any function, and from that point onwards you can write whatever code, you can create classes, functions, whatever you want, and then your entire app will be built from that. But your point of invocation is that main function. Okay, so similarly we have a main.dart file. Then there's too much of boilerplate code now. Let's see what we can do about it. We will just quickly remove all the comments because they're like for distracting. I will just quickly remove them. Okay, now that our comments are gone, it is much clearer to see. So over here at the top, always in every file, you will see an import statement. Okay. Then there you will see a main function that will always be there, always be there. Then in every Flutter project, in order to run a Flutter app from the main function, you need something called a run app method. This is a global method, global available method. You do not have to access it via an object of a class. This is a global function that is exposed via the Flutter material.dart file that we have imported. If I remove this file, let's say if I comment out this file, you will see that all of this goes into red, right? Because all of these functions and widgets and everything are imported from the material.dart file. Okay, so this is a Flutter function, run app. Main is a Dart function, run app is a Flutter function, and inside run app, what we are doing is that we are just creating an object. I mean, if you know basic object oriented programming, you would know that there are classes and there are objects, right? So you define a class and then you can create an object of that class, right? Similarly, what we have done is that there is a class called myapp. So there is this class called myapp, and all we are doing is just instantiating the class to create an object of that class. Okay, and we are passing that object to run app method. That is all we are doing. That is it. And once that is done, so the myapp object that you pass to the run app method is just going to start your Flutter application. And then from inside myapp class, you can then go ahead and create your Flutter application completely. Okay, so that is how it works. Let me just quickly show you what this boilerplate application is before we go into break, and then we'll continue to code more when we come back. This is the default application that Flutter gives you. Whenever you create a new Flutter project, this is the default application that Flutter gives you. There is an app bar, there is a title in the app bar, there is a debug banner that you can see over here. There is a text over here, there is a big text over here, there is a floating action button over here. This is a button. Okay, now if I click on this plus icon, this counter will increase. You can see that this counter will increase in real time. If I just keep clicking on it, it will just keep on increasing, keeps on increasing, right? Now, before we go into break, I'm just going to show you some magic tricks. Okay, so you see that their Flutter demo homepage is written over here, right? If I change it over here in code right now, so for example, I can what is the abbreviation term for our club?
Design and innovation.
Design and innovation. So what is the abbreviated term? Is there a
Oh,
short
sorry,
term
DI
that I
club,
can use?
DI club, DI club.
DI, right? Okay. So by the way, guys, folks, if once you start into development, DI would stand for dependency injection. So you would be seeing this DI term a lot once you become a coder. Anyways, so right now I've just cleared it out, right? Now, if I say DI hello, or not jello, hello from DI club. And if I just click save, that's it, nothing else. I'm not doing anything else. You see that the text has been hot replaced, right? You are running the app right now. It's live in front of you. As soon as you change anything in the code, it reflects dynamically at that instant. At that very instant, it reflects dynamically in the app. This is the beauty of Flutter. See how easy the process is? You just change something in the code, and I have just right now just have changed the text. You could have changed anything, and it has maintained the state as well. It's not like it has refreshed the entire page or anything. It has refreshed only this part. So you can see that the 47 number is still here. Now let's do some more fun. So how many genius participants do we have? And as soon as I hit save, it is automatically replaced over here. Now let's have some gap. It's just too close. I will tell you about all of these. I'm just quickly doing it so that you have something to see. You see that a gap was there. A gap has now been introduced between these two texts, right? Then there is a counter variable. If I want to, let's say, add a G as a prefix, so I will just add a G over here. Then you will see that now it will say G47, G48, G49, G40, whatever, right? And if I want to, not that I can't do the refresh, Now, up until now, we have been refreshing only the elements that we wanted, right? But what if we want to do a complete refresh? What if we want to do a complete restart? If I just do this, if I just press on this restart icon over here, it will just do a complete restart and we'll get a new app. See everything, G0. Now we're back to square one. Okay, and I can just do this again. Right, we can do, there are unlimited possibilities over here. I can do a lot of things, and we will be doing a lot of things. We will be going through all of this code. We will be going through each word and see what that means, right? And I will be guiding you as to how you can do the same, right? It's not just that you have to learn whatever I tell you today. I am going to tell you, or I am going to teach you how you can go ahead and further explore all of this code base on your own without any help. And I'm going to guide you through the resources that you need to, go through this code base on your own, completely independently, right? So I don't want to start with it right now because we just have 9 minutes to go, and I am guessing all of you might be hungry because I am definitely. So yeah, let's just keep 8-9 minutes. I can take a few questions, and apart from that, you are free to go for break. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Where is my, how do I go back to Zoom? 8 minutes. No. I think I should escape. Yeah. Okay. Stop sharing. 7-8 minutes for questions. If you have any questions, please feel free. Questions, guys, before you go to the break. Or if you want to just go to the break, you can do that as well. I'll be here though. I'll be here the entire while. If I mean, I might be, unavailable for a bit just to, so that I can have some lunch or something. But apart from that, I'm here. So if you want, if you want to just chit chat and discuss, I would love to do that. I would love to know more about you, because coding and all is fine. But I mean, I would love to know more about you and your experience at SRM. And what are your plans for the future? Questions, or it's fine. We can do a 10-15 minute questions round after we come, after, once we come after lunch. That's also completely fine.
I guess all are hungry, so we'll maybe come back like at 2:15. We'll take a break, and I request all of you guys to join us back like by 2:15 so that we can have a quick question and answer session. And we will also be posting the feedback form, so you guys have to come back anyway so that you guys get your certificates and everything. And the fun part is yet to come, so obviously so you guys can take your break and join us back at 2:15, right?
Yep. Please be back. Please don't go away. It will be really sad. It will be really sad if the number decreases in the second half. Yeah, because I mean the fun part is starting now. Now you'll be writing code, and now you'll be seeing that on the app. So that will be really cool.
Yeah, you can give life to your apps now. So yes,
Yep.
You guys can have your lunch and can come back. Thank you.